"One move is all I need." The words cut through the gym before Bruce Lee had even taken off his jacket. Diana Hayes stood in the center of the wrestling mat with a man twice her age folded beneath her, his cheek pressed into the canvas, his right arm twisted behind his back so tightly his fingers trembled. She looked straight at Bruce. "One move," she repeated, louder this time, smiling as the room turned. "That's all it would take." The man under her groaned. Diana released him only after the sound became embarrassing. He rolled away, clutching his shoulder, and the crowd around the mat laughed because that was what people did when Diana wanted them to laugh. Bruce did not laugh. He stood near the entrance of the old Los Angeles training hall, small, quiet, dressed in a dark jacket and dark trousers, his hair neat, his face unreadable. Behind him, one of his students, a young man named Peter, shifted nervously with a canvas bag over his shoulder. The room was packed tighter than it should have been. Wrestlers leaned against the walls. Boxers sat on folded chairs. A few karate men in white uniforms watched with crossed arms. 2 reporters stood near the water cooler, pretending they had not come for trouble. Everyone had heard the same rumor. Bruce Lee was coming, and Diana Hayes had something to say to him. She stepped off the mat barefoot, still breathing calmly after the throw. She was taller than Bruce by several inches, broad through the shoulders, with thick wrists, powerful legs, and a face that looked almost friendly until her eyes sharpened. Her wrestling singlet was black, her blonde hair tied back tight, and a strip of white tape crossed the knuckles of her right hand. She did not walk toward Bruce. She cut across the room like she owned the air between them. Peter moved first, trying to make space. "Excuse me." A heavy wrestler in a gray sweatshirt shoved him with one shoulder. Peter stumbled into the wall. The canvas bag dropped from his hand. A pair of wooden training sticks slid out and clattered across the floor. A few men laughed. Bruce's eyes moved to Peter for half a second, then back to Diana. Diana stopped close enough that her shadow fell across Bruce's shoes. "So it's true," she said. "The movie man came." Someone behind her chuckled. Bruce looked at her calmly. "I was invited." "Were you?" Diana glanced around the room as if asking the others to enjoy the joke with her. "Because I thought this was a wrestling clinic, real contact, real pressure, not camera angles." The reporters became very still. Peter bent to pick up the sticks. The man in the gray sweatshirt stepped on one of them before Peter could grab it. "Careful," the wrestler said. "Might start dancing by itself." More laughter. Bruce did not move. That made Diana's smile tighten. She had expected a comeback. Anger, pride. Maybe one of those sharp little statements people said Bruce Lee was famous for. Instead, he just stood there, looking at her as if she were a problem on a board, not a person trying to embarrass him. Diana lifted her chin. "You know what I respect?" she said. "A fighter who can be grabbed and still do something. A fighter who can hit the floor and get back up. Not a man who talks about water and rhythm while making sure nobody puts hands on him." A karate man near the chairs muttered, "She's got a point." Peter's face reddened. "You don't know what he can do." The room turned toward him. That was his mistake. Diana's eyes snapped to Peter, and the friendliness vanished so fast it felt like a light going out. "What did you say?" Peter swallowed. "I said you don't know what he can do." Diana took one step toward him. Peter straightened, but before he could raise his hands, she caught his sleeve, turned her hip, and threw him hard onto the edge of the mat. He landed with a flat slap that made the room flinch. The wooden sticks rolled away. Diana stood over him, one hand still holding the torn edge of his sleeve. "That," she said, looking back at Bruce, "is what happens when theory meets a grip." Peter tried to rise. Diana placed one foot near his shoulder, not on him, but close enough to make the message clear. Bruce finally stepped forward, not fast, not dramatic, just one step. The laughter thinned. Diana noticed it, so did everyone else. Bruce looked at Peter. "Are you hurt?" Peter shook his head, embarrassed more than injured. "No." Bruce nodded once. Diana laughed softly. "That's it? Your student gets thrown and you ask if he's hurt?" Bruce looked at her. He answered. The words were simple, but something in the room shifted. A few wrestlers exchanged glances. Diana's jaw flexed. She had built the moment for noise, and Bruce kept stealing the noise from it. The man in the gray sweatshirt bent down, picked up one of Peter's sticks, and tossed it toward Bruce's feet. "Here," he said, "maybe you need a prop." The stick bounced once and stopped beside Bruce's shoe. Bruce did not look down at it. Diana stepped closer again. This time, she came inside the space most people protected without thinking. Her shoulder nearly touched his chest. She smelled of sweat, wintergreen liniment, and leather. "You're smaller than I thought," she said. Bruce's eyes did not change. "That happens." The answer was so quiet that some people missed it. Diana heard it. Her smile returned, but now it had anger underneath. "You think calm makes you dangerous?" "No," Bruce said. "Then what does?" Bruce looked at her hands. Diana noticed. For the first time, her fingers twitched. He said, "Timing." A few people murmured. Diana's face changed again. Amusement to irritation. Irritation to heat. "Timing," she repeated. "Good. Then time this." Her right hand shot out and grabbed the front of Bruce's jacket. Peter pushed himself up. "Hey!" Two wrestlers stepped in front of him instantly, blocking him with their bodies. Diana yanked Bruce half a step forward. The room inhaled. The grip was real. Her knuckles pressed into the fabric at his chest. She pulled hard enough that most men would have stumbled into her. Bruce's heel slid no more than an inch, then stopped. Diana frowned. She pulled again. This time, Bruce shifted, not backward, not forward, but slightly across her line. The pressure in her arm changed. Her grip was still on him, but the control she wanted was not there anymore. For half a second, confusion flashed across her eyes. Bruce lifted his hand and placed 2 fingers against the back of her wrist, not forcefully, almost politely. Then he peeled her grip open finger by finger. The room went silent before he had finished. When the last finger came loose, Bruce stepped back exactly where he had been standing. Diana looked at her own hand as if it had betrayed her. Someone coughed. That tiny sound broke the silence, and Diana's anger came rushing back. She slapped her palm against Bruce's chest, not hard enough to injure, hard enough to insult. Peter surged forward, but the 2 wrestlers blocked him again. One put a hand against Peter's throat and shoved him back into the wall. "Stay there," he warned. Bruce glanced at the hand on Peter's throat. The wrestler removed it slowly. Diana saw the glance and mistook the restraint for hesitation. "There it is," she said. "That little look. You want to do something, but you won't. Because if this becomes real, you know exactly what happens." She turned to the crowd and raised her voice. "Everybody here has seen punches, kicks, fancy hand traps, speed demonstrations, but fighting doesn't happen in empty air. Fighting happens when somebody stronger closes the distance, puts hands on you, and takes away your choices." She stepped back onto the mat and pointed to the center circle. "So let's make this simple." The reporters moved closer. One lifted his camera. Diana's coach, an older man with a shaved head and a whistle around his neck, crossed his arms near the mat. He looked nervous, but not enough to stop her. Diana pointed at Bruce. "No punches, no kicks, no elbows, no movie tricks. You stand in the circle. I get 1 clean grip. If you escape, I'll say I was wrong." She paused, letting the room lean in. "But if you don't escape, you say it in front of everyone. Wrestling beats kung fu. Strength beats philosophy. Contact beats dancing." The last word landed exactly how she wanted it to. A few men laughed again, but not as confidently now. Bruce looked at the circle, then at Diana, then at Peter, who was rubbing his shoulder and trying not to look ashamed. The trap was obvious. The circle was small. Diana was fresh. The room belonged to her. The rules removed almost everything the crowd associated with Bruce Lee. No striking, no distance, no speed across open space. Just Diana's world. Pressure, leverage, grip, and the slow suffocation of choice. Diana saw him studying it and smiled. "You can still walk away," she said. "No shame in admitting one move is enough." Bruce stepped onto the edge of the mat. The room tightened around him. Diana's coach moved to one side. The wrestlers closed in behind Peter. The reporters lifted their pens. Even the men who had laughed earlier stopped laughing long enough to watch his face. Bruce looked at Diana. Then he said, "Prove it." Diana's smile widened, because in her mind, Bruce Lee had just accepted a challenge he could not win. Diana's coach stepped onto the mat with the slow confidence of a man who had spent years watching people realize too late that they had made a mistake. His name was Frank Mallory. Thick neck, flat nose, hands like broken tools. He had coached wrestlers for 20 years, and he did not look at Bruce Lee the way fans looked at him. He looked at him like a scale looks at weight, measuring, judging, already deciding the number was too small. "Before anyone gets excited," Mallory said, raising one hand toward the room, "this is not a street fight. This is not a film set. This is a control demonstration." He said the last two words slowly, almost kindly, and that made them worse. Diana rolled her shoulders. "Tell him the rules, Frank." Mallory looked at Bruce. "You start inside the circle, both feet in. She starts 1 arm's length away. Once contact is made, you have 10 seconds to escape cleanly." Peter, still near the wall, frowned. 10 seconds? Mallory didn't look at him. If he's as good as everyone says, 10 seconds should be a lifetime. A few men laughed. Mallory continued, "No strikes, no finger attacks, no kicking the knees, no running out of bounds, no grabbing the ropes, no help from students, no excuses." Each rule landed like another bar sliding into place. Bruce stood at the edge of the mat, listening. Diana bounced lightly on the balls of her feet. Her eyes stayed on him. She was enjoying this part more than the challenge itself, the tightening, the pressure, the way a room slowly learned to side with the person who controlled the rules. Mallory pointed to a chalk circle drawn on the mat. "You step out, you lose." Bruce glanced down. The circle was smaller than he expected, 6 feet across, enough room to turn, not enough room to disappear. Diana saw him notice. "That a problem?" she asked. Bruce looked up. "For whom?" The room gave a low murmur, not laughter, something sharper. Diana's smile flickered. Mallory stepped between them quickly. "Let's make sure everyone understands what Diana does." He turned toward the crowd and snapped his fingers. A young wrestler in a blue singlet jogged forward, tall, lean, nervous. He tried to grin as if he had volunteered for something harmless. Diana didn't wait for a signal. She caught his wrist, stepped inside, and folded him over her hip so fast his feet lifted before his face changed expression. He hit the mat with a hollow thud. Diana kept his arm pinned and placed her knee near his ribs. "One," Mallory said. The young wrestler slapped the mat twice. Diana released him and stood. The crowd applauded. Bruce watched her feet, not her arms, not her shoulders, her feet. Mallory snapped again. A heavier man came forward next, maybe 200 pounds, thick through the waist, confident enough to nod at Diana like he knew the script. He reached for her first. That was the mistake. Diana dropped under his arm, hooked behind his knee, and drove her shoulder into his center. The man tried to widen his stance, but she had already stolen the angle. His body tilted sideways. His hands clawed at empty air. He crashed onto his back with a sound that made one of the reporters wince. Diana held him there with one forearm across his throat. "Two," Mallory said. The man tapped immediately. Diana rose again, not even breathing hard. She looked at Bruce. Still no reaction. That began to bother her. Mallory pointed at a third man. This one was not nervous. He was older, compact, with cauliflower ears and a wrestler's flattened posture. He circled Diana carefully, then shot low for her legs. For half a second, he looked like he had her. His hands touched behind her thigh. Diana's expression changed, not fear, insult. She sprawled hard, drove her weight down on the back of his neck, and snapped his head toward the mat. The sound of his forehead hitting the canvas made the crowd flinch. Before he could recover, she spun behind him, trapped one arm, and cranked it upward. He shouted, not tapped, shouted. Mallory stepped in. "Enough!" Diana held the lock one heartbeat longer than she needed to, then let go. The man rolled away, clutching his shoulder. His face had gone pale. The applause came slower this time. People had enjoyed the first throw. They had respected the second. The third made them remember that this could hurt. Diana stood over the circle, chest rising now, eyes bright. "That's wrestling," she said. "Not theory, not posing, not little hand movements in front of a mirror. You make contact, you take control, and the body tells the truth." She walked toward Bruce again. This time the crowd parted for her before she arrived. Bruce did not. Diana stopped inches away. "Still interested?" Bruce looked past her at the third wrestler, who was still flexing his fingers to make sure his arm worked. "You held too long," Bruce said. The room went still. Diana blinked once. "What?" "You had control before pain," Bruce said. "Pain was extra." Mallory's eyes narrowed. Diana stared at Bruce as if he had slapped her. Then she laughed. It came out short, dry, dangerous. "You hear that?" she said, turning to the room. "He's not even on the mat yet, and he's giving moral lessons." Bruce said nothing. That silence again. Diana's face tightened. The laugh vanished. "Maybe you should worry about your own arm." Peter stepped forward. "Mr. Lee, don't let them—" The wrestler in the gray sweatshirt blocked him again, this time putting both palms against Peter's chest and driving him back. Peter shoved one hand away. The wrestler grabbed him by the collar. The room shifted instantly. Bruce's head turned. The wrestler saw it and froze. It was not fear exactly. It was the sudden animal understanding that a line had been touched. Mallory barked, "Let him go." The wrestler released Peter, but not before pushing him once more into the wall. Peter's shoulder hit wood. Diana watched Bruce closely, hungry for the reaction. Still nothing. Only Bruce's eyes had changed. That made the gym feel smaller. Mallory cleared his throat. "Nobody touches the students. We're here for a demonstration." "Then demonstrate," Diana snapped. Her anger came fast now, too fast. A moment ago she was performing. Now she was chasing something she could not name. She turned to Bruce and pointed at the circle. "Inside." Bruce stepped onto the mat. The room became so quiet the old fluorescent lights above them seemed louder. He crossed the boundary and stood in the center. Diana looked pleased for 1 second, then Mallory lifted a hand. "Not yet." Bruce looked at him. Mallory walked to the edge of the mat, took the boundary rope, and pulled it inward. 2 men helped him tighten it, reducing the usable space around the chalk circle. The rope sagged close behind Bruce's back. Peter noticed immediately. That wasn't part of it. Mallory did not turn around. Safety. For who? The question came from someone near the back. A karate man, arms still crossed but no longer amused. Diana shot him a look. "You want to take his place?" The man lowered his eyes. The trap tightened again. Mallory stepped back. "Final condition. Diana gets first contact." Peter's mouth opened. "First contact? You mean he can't move until she grabs him?" Mallory smiled without warmth. "Until she attempts contact. If he moves early, it's a loss." Diana's confidence returned at once. She flexed her fingers, thick and taped, then opened and closed them slowly so everyone could see what Bruce would soon be caught in. "That's fair," she said. "A real fighter doesn't need to run." Bruce looked at the rope behind him, the chalk under his feet, the bodies near the edge, Diana in front of him, Mallory watching for any excuse to call defeat. Then he looked at Peter. Peter shook his head slightly. Bruce understood. The rules were not designed to test him, they were designed to remove him. Diana stepped into the circle opposite him, close, too close. The top of her shoulder almost aligned with his chin. Her stance dropped low, weight forward, hands loose. "Last chance," she whispered. Bruce answered softly, "You keep offering chances you don't plan to give." Diana's eyes flashed. For 1 second, she smiled. The next, there was no smile at all. Mallory raised his whistle. The room leaned in. But before he could blow it, Diana's hand shot out again. Not part of the start, not clean, not legal. She grabbed Bruce by the jacket collar and yanked with everything she had. This time she expected him to resist. He didn't. He stepped with the pull, turning just enough that her force slid past the center of him. Her elbow bent at an awkward angle. Her shoulder followed too far. For a fraction of a second, Diana's balance hung over empty space. Bruce's hand rose and touched her wrist. 2 fingers. No strike, no twist, just a reminder. Diana felt it. Everyone saw her feel it. She ripped her hand back as if the touch burned. Mallory lowered the whistle slowly. Nobody laughed. Bruce adjusted his jacket where her grip had wrinkled it. Diana's breathing changed, small but visible. One sharp inhale through the nose. For the first time, she was not trying to entertain the room. She was trying to solve him, and she hated that she had to. Mallory stepped closer to her and spoke under his breath. "Stick to the plan." Diana did not look at him. Her eyes stayed locked on Bruce. "The plan," she said loud enough for the front row to hear, "just changed." Mallory's face tightened. "Diana." She raised one hand and silenced him without turning. Then she looked at Bruce and spoke clearly, so every person in the gym could hear. "No more warm-up, no more polite clinic. You and me. 1 attempt, 1 grip, and when I put you down, I want you to say the words." Bruce asked, "Which words?" Diana stepped closer until the chalk scuffed under her heel. That wrestling beats kung fu. Bruce's face remained calm. But Peter, watching from the wall, saw something very small happen. Bruce's right hand relaxed, not clenched, relaxed, and Peter knew enough to become afraid for Diana. Mallory finally blew the whistle. The sound cracked through the gym. Diana lowered her level. Bruce stood still. The first real attack was about to begin. The whistle had barely finished echoing when Diana moved, not like the room expected, not slow, not heavy. She exploded forward from the hips, low and sharp, her left hand cutting toward Bruce's wrist while her right shoulder drove behind it like a battering ram. The mat squeaked under her first step. Her taped fingers opened wide. The audience saw the attack and understood it at once. If she caught him, the match would be over before anyone could breathe. Bruce did not retreat. That was the first thing that confused people. A smaller man should have moved back. He should have widened the distance, circled away, used the little space he had left before the rope swallowed him. Instead, Bruce stayed almost exactly where he was, his weight centered, his hands loose, his eyes on Diana's chest rather than her hands. Diana's fingers snapped shut. For a fraction of a second, it looked like she had him. Then her grip closed on cloth. Not wrist, cloth. Bruce's hand had rotated just enough that the bone she wanted was no longer where her fingers expected it to be. Her hand seized the sleeve instead. It was still something. Diana smiled through her teeth and drove forward anyway. Cloth was enough. She slammed her weight into him. Bruce slid back half a step. The crowd erupted. "There!" someone shouted. "She's got him!" Diana kept driving, shoulder low, chin tucked, her forehead nearly brushing Bruce's collarbone. Her right hand shot up to trap the elbow. Her left foot stepped outside his. The old mechanics came alive in her body. Wrist, elbow, shoulder, hip, foot. One chain, one move. The move she had promised. Bruce's heel touched the edge of the chalk circle. A thin white smear marked the side of his shoe. Peter felt his stomach drop. Behind Bruce, the rope was close enough to touch his jacket. Behind the rope stood 3 wrestlers, arms folded, bodies blocking any escape route that was never supposed to be used anyway. Diana had not only pushed him toward the boundary, she had pushed him toward a wall made of men. Mallory's voice split the room. "Finish!" Diana's grip tightened. Her fingers dug so hard into the sleeve that the fabric strained with a dry, ripping sound. Bruce's elbow began to fold inward. Diana's right hand climbed toward the joint, hunting the lock. The audience leaned forward together, hundreds of bodies moving as one animal. For the first time, Bruce looked trapped. Diana felt it. That feeling fed her. She drove harder. "Say it," she hissed near his chest. "Say you can't stop it." Bruce's eyes flicked down to her lead foot, only for a moment. Diana noticed too late. Bruce's elbow shifted, not swung, not pulled, shifted. Half an inch outward, then down, changing the line of her pressure before she fully understood what had happened. At the same time, his right foot crossed slightly behind her lead foot, so small most of the room missed it. Diana's shoulder kept driving forward, but the body in front of her was no longer where her force had aimed. Her own weight carried her past him, just a little, just enough. Her left knee dipped, her spine tilted. The grip that had seemed like a chain suddenly became an anchor, pulling her off her own base. Diana caught herself before she fell. Barely. Her right foot slapped the mat to save her balance. The sound cracked through the silence. Nobody cheered. Nobody even laughed. They had seen it. Not a victory, not a throw. Not yet. But something worse for Diana. A mistake. Bruce stood beside her now, not behind the line where she had driven him. His sleeve was twisted in her hand, but his body was free. He looked calm, almost curious, as if the entire exchange had answered a question. Diana released the fabric and spun toward him. Her cheeks had gone red. For 1 second, the gym saw something raw in her face. Not embarrassment, not fear, disbelief. Then anger covered it. She shoved him hard with both hands. Bruce's chest took the impact. He moved 1 step back, not because she had broken his balance, but because he allowed the distance to exist. The shove was illegal. Everyone knew it. Mallory looked away. The reporters looked at each other. Peter stepped forward. That was after the break. The gray sweatshirt wrestler moved instantly, blocking him with his chest. "Sit down," Peter tried to go around him. The wrestler grabbed Peter by the front of his shirt and slammed him back against the wall. Not enough to injure him, enough to make his head knock the wood paneling. Bruce turned. The whole room felt it. The wrestler's hand tightened once, then slowly opened. Peter breathed hard, eyes locked on Bruce, silently begging him not to make this worse. Diana used the moment. She stepped in and slapped Bruce across the side of the face. The sound was sharp, flat, ugly. The room froze. Even Mallory's jaw tightened. Diana's hand stayed in the air for a second after the slap, fingers spread, as if she herself had not decided whether she meant to do it until the sound proved she had. Bruce's head had turned slightly from the impact. Slowly, he looked back at her. No anger. That was what disturbed her. A man could yell, a man could threaten, a man could lunge and make everything simple, but Bruce looked at her as if the slap had told him more about her than about him. Diana's breathing grew heavier. "What?" she snapped. "Too real now?" Bruce said nothing. That silence crawled under her skin. She turned to the crowd, kneading them back. "You saw him step out of the line." "He didn't," Peter said. Diana's head whipped toward him. "Nobody asked you." "He didn't step out." The gray sweatshirt wrestler shoved Peter again. "I said sit down." This time, Peter shoved back. Bad choice. The wrestler's fist rose. Bruce moved one step. Only one. But the wrestler stopped mid-swing. His fist hung in the air, inches from Peter's face. Bruce's eyes were on him now. Not Diana, not Mallory. Him. "Put it down," Bruce said. The wrestler's face hardened. There were too many people watching for him to obey easily. His pride had been touched. His arm trembled with the stupidity of a man deciding whether to become an example. Diana saw it and smiled. A new idea entered her face. "Let him swing," she said. "Maybe your teacher can protect you with timing." The wrestler liked that. His fist lifted higher. Peter did not blink, but his throat moved. Bruce stepped closer. The wrestler shifted toward him, relieved to have a bigger target for his embarrassment. "You want something?" Bruce stopped just outside the man's reach. "No." The wrestler smirked. Then Bruce added, "You're holding your breath." The smirk vanished. The room heard it. The wrestler heard it. Worse, he realized Bruce was right. His chest had locked, his shoulder had risen, his balance had climbed into his neck. For a moment, he forgot to be threatening. Peter slipped out from against the wall. The audience murmured again. Diana's face darkened. She had lost the room twice now, first on the mat, then in a confrontation that was supposed to make Bruce look cautious. She slapped the mat with her palm. Enough. The sound pulled every eye back to her. She pointed at Bruce. "That first attempt was nothing. Warm-up pressure. I was testing your reaction." Mallory shifted uncomfortably. "Diana," she cut him off without looking. "No, full contact." A low sound moved through the crowd. Mallory stepped closer. That was not the agreement. Diana turned on him so fast he stopped. "You brought me here because people pay to watch me prove a point," she said. "So let me prove it." Mallory's eyes flicked toward the reporters, toward the audience, toward Bruce. He knew the moment had slipped beyond a clinic. But he also knew stopping now would make Diana look afraid. And Diana Hayes did not tolerate looking afraid. He lowered his voice. "Full contact means he can hit." Diana laughed once. Now the laugh was too loud. "Let him." Bruce watched her. Diana pointed at his chest. "No more hiding behind rules. No more pretending a little sleeve trick means something. You can strike. You can move. You can do whatever you think saves you." She stepped closer. "But I only need one clean grip." The crowd reacted instantly. This was what they wanted. Danger with permission, pride with witnesses, a challenge that could no longer be explained away as demonstration. Peter moved beside Bruce. "Mr. Lee, she's trying to drag you into her fight." Bruce looked at Diana's hands again. "No," he said quietly. "She's already outside hers." Peter did not understand at first. Then he looked at Diana's face. The anger was there. Bright, hot, uncontrolled. Diana had entered the room as a champion showing dominance. Now she was a champion chasing a man who would not give her the emotional reaction she needed. That made her more dangerous. Mallory raised the whistle again, but Diana did not wait. She lunged. This time she came higher, palm to throat, forearm behind it, trying to jam Bruce backward before he could set his feet. Bruce turned his shoulder and her palm slid past his neck, missing skin by less than an inch. His hand touched her elbow, not striking, guiding, and her arm passed through empty space. Diana spun and backhanded at him, a wild movement, not wrestling. Bruce leaned just outside it. The hand cut across the air in front of his face. The crowd gasped. Mallory shouted, "Control!" Diana ignored him. She rushed again, lower now, grabbing for both legs. Bruce stepped diagonally, but the rope behind him cut off the clean angle. Diana's hand caught his pant leg near the knee. The fabric snapped tight. This time, she had something real. She drove her shoulder into his thigh. Bruce's balance shifted. The crowd surged to its feet. Diana's mouth opened in a fierce grin. "Now!" she pulled. Bruce dropped his weight, not down into her strength, but slightly across it. His hand touched the back of her neck for the briefest moment, redirecting her head away from his center. Diana still had the pant leg, still had the drive, but her spine bent at the wrong angle. Her grip slipped. Bruce's leg came free. Diana stumbled forward on both hands, caught herself, and sprang back up almost instantly. Too instantly, too angrily. Her hair had loosened from its tie. A strand fell across her face. She brushed it away with a violent flick and stared at Bruce like she wanted to tear the calm out of him with her fingers. For the first time, sweat ran down her temple. Bruce had not struck her once. That made the humiliation worse. Diana took 2 slow steps backward. The room expected her to reset. Instead, she turned and walked straight toward Peter. Peter stiffened. Bruce's eyes narrowed. Diana grabbed Peter's wrist before he could move and twisted it behind his back. Peter sucked air through his teeth and dropped to one knee. The room shouted at once, "Hey! Come on! Leave him!" Mallory stepped forward. "Diana!" She ignored all of them. Her eyes stayed on Bruce. "You want rules?" she said. "Here's a rule. Students learn when teachers fail." Peter's face tightened with pain. Bruce took 1 step toward her. Diana increased the pressure on Peter's wrist. He gasped. Bruce stopped. The trap had changed shape again. Now it was not the circle, not the rope, not the crowd. It was Peter's arm. Diana smiled, but there was strain inside it. "One more exchange," she said. "No reset, no whistle, no stepping away. I come until somebody goes down." Bruce looked at Peter's wrist, then at Diana's hand, then into her eyes. "Release him." "Agree." The gym held its breath. Peter shook his head despite the pain. "Don't," Diana twisted harder. Peter's words broke into a sharp breath. Bruce's voice lowered. "Release him first." For a second, Diana looked ready to refuse. Then she shoved Peter forward. He fell to his hands and knees. Bruce caught his shoulder before he hit fully, steadying him without taking his eyes off Diana. Peter whispered, "I'm sorry." Bruce answered, "Stand behind me." Peter obeyed. Diana returned to the center of the mat. No smile now, no performance, only anger. She lowered her stance until her fingertips almost touched the canvas. Then she whispered, loud enough for only Bruce in the front row to hear, "Now I'm going to hurt you." Bruce stepped into the circle again. The rope pressed close behind him. Diana's hands opened, and this time, everyone in the room understood that the next grip would not be a demonstration. It would be an attempt to break something. Diana did not wait for the room to settle. The moment Peter stepped behind Bruce, she moved sideways, circling, not toward open space, but toward the edge where the rope sagged closest to Bruce's back. She was not just trying to catch him now, she was trying to hurt him. Bruce saw it. So did Mallory. But Mallory said nothing. The gym had changed. The chairs along the wall were no longer just chairs. Men had stood up from them. Wrestlers crowded the mat. Reporters leaned in with cameras ready. The air felt hotter, tighter, almost sour with sweat and pride. Peter stood behind Bruce, rubbing his wrist, his eyes fixed on Diana. "She's cutting the angle," he whispered. Bruce did not turn. "I know. She's trying to leave you nowhere." Bruce's gaze stayed on Diana's shoulders. That is what fear does when it wears confidence. Peter did not answer, because Diana came in again. This time, she did not shoot straight. She faked low, then slammed her shoulder into Bruce's chest from the side. The impact sounded dull and heavy. Bruce turned with it, absorbing the force, but the shove drove him toward the rope. His back nearly touched it. The crowd roared. Diana followed instantly. Her left forearm crashed across his upper arm. Her right hand clawed for the back of his jacket. She was not looking for a perfect grip anymore. She was using contact like a storm, hitting, bumping, smothering, forcing him to react before he could think. Bruce slipped one hand inside her arm and turned. Diana's fingers scraped fabric, missed. She growled and hit him again with her shoulder. This time, Bruce's foot slid onto the chalk line. Mallory pointed down. "Careful!" The warning was for Bruce, not for Diana. Peter snapped. "She shoved him there!" The gray sweatshirt wrestler stepped toward him again. Peter raised his hands this time, ready. Bruce spoke without looking back. "Peter." One word. Peter froze. The wrestler smiled, thinking Peter had backed down. Then Bruce added, "Breathe." The smile faded. Diana heard it and charged harder. Her right hand shot down toward Bruce's ankle. Bruce lifted his foot half a beat before she caught it. Her fingers brushed the heel. She came up immediately into a body lock attempt, both arms trying to wrap his waist. For one dangerous second, her shoulder was under his ribs. The room felt the shift. If Diana locked her hands, Bruce would have nowhere to go. She knew it too. Her teeth showed. Bruce dropped his elbow between her arms and his body, creating a wedge no wider than his own forearm. Diana squeezed anyway. Her arms closed, but not around his spine, around an angle that would not hold. Bruce pivoted. Diana's grip slid. Her palm caught his jacket. She ripped downward. The sound was sharp. Fabric tore from Bruce's sleeve to the seam near his shoulder. A thin strip of black cloth hung loose. The room exploded. Diana stepped back, holding the torn piece in her fist like a prize. "There!" she shouted. "That's what happens when I touch you." A few men cheered. A few did not, because Bruce was still standing exactly where she did not want him to be standing, calm, balanced, unhurt. Diana lifted the torn fabric higher, smiling for the cameras. But the smile was wrong now, too wide, too hard. Her chest rose and fell faster than before. She was sweating openly. Bruce looked at the cloth in her hand, then at her feet. "Again with the eyes," Diana snapped. "Stop looking at my feet." Bruce said, "Then stop telling the truth with them." The line landed quietly. It cut deeper than a shout. Diana's face hardened. She threw the torn fabric at his chest. It struck him and fell to the mat. Then she turned suddenly and grabbed Peter again, not by the wrist this time, by the back of his neck. Peter was yanked forward so fast his shoes scraped across the floor. Diana dragged him to the edge of the mat and shoved him down to one knee. Bruce moved. Two wrestlers stepped into his path. One raised both palms. "Stay back." "She's not hurting him." Diana's hand tightened on Peter's neck. Peter winced. Bruce stopped. The trap closed again. Diana looked almost pleased. She had found the one lever that forced motion into Bruce's stillness. "You keep hiding behind patience," she said. "Let's see if your student can hide behind it too." Mallory stepped in fast now. "Diana, let him go." She didn't even look at him. "No." The word cracked through the room. Mallory's authority shrank in front of everyone. Diana pulled Peter's head back slightly, making him look up. "Tell him," she said. Peter clenched his jaw. Diana leaned closer. "Tell your teacher not to be clever this time." Peter stared at Bruce. His face was pale, but his voice came out steady. "Don't give her what she wants." Diana's expression flipped. A second ago she had been smiling. Now rage flooded her face. She shoved Peter sideways. He hit the mat on one shoulder. That was the moment Bruce stepped through the two wrestlers, not around them. Through. The first tried to block him with a forearm across the chest. Bruce's hand rose, touched the man's wrist, and redirected it down so cleanly that the wrestler found himself turned halfway toward the floor without understanding why. The second reached for Bruce's shoulder. Bruce shifted under the hand and the man stumbled into his own partner. No strike, no dramatic throw, just two bodies suddenly in each other's way. The room gasped. Bruce was already at Peter's side. He helped him up with one hand. Diana watched him, breathing hard. For a moment nobody moved. Then she clapped, slowly, once, twice, 3 times. "There he is," she said, finally. Bruce looked at Peter. "Behind me." Peter nodded and moved back. Diana stepped closer, eyes bright with a dangerous kind of satisfaction. "You can pretend this is about control," she said, "but I saw it. You don't like being crowded. You don't like people touching what belongs to you." Bruce's eyes lifted. Peter felt the temperature change. Diana had found another line, and she pushed it. "That's the problem with teachers," she said. "They act peaceful until somebody grabs their little disciples." Bruce's voice stayed quiet. You are confusing restraint with weakness. Diana came nose to nose with him, or as close as her height allowed. No, she whispered. I'm trying to find out where the weakness is. Mallory grabbed her arm. Enough! Diana turned so sharply Mallory released her. Don't touch me! The room saw it. Her own coach had become another obstacle, another person she needed to dominate. Mallory stepped back, jaw tight. Diana looked at the crowd and raised both hands. You all came to see truth, she said. So here it is. No more 10 seconds, no more demonstration, no referee interruption, no reset after contact. The reporters scribbled furiously. Mallory said, This is reckless. Diana ignored him. She pointed at Bruce. One continuous exchange. I attack until one of us goes down. If he steps out, he loses. If he strikes to injure, he loses. If I lock him, he says the words. Bruce asked, And if you go down? For the first time, Diana did not answer immediately. The pause was small, but everyone heard it. Her eyes narrowed. If I go down, she said, I'll stand up and come again. That's not an answer. Diana's lips parted. Then she smiled, but the smile had no humor left. If I go down and cannot continue, I will say I was wrong. Mallory stared at her. Diana, she raised one hand. Start it. Mallory did not move. Diana turned to him. Start it. Her voice was lower now, more dangerous than when she shouted. Mallory looked at Bruce as if expecting him to refuse. Bruce only stepped back into the circle. The rope brushed his torn sleeve. The torn strip of cloth still lay between them. Diana entered opposite him. Her stance was lower than before, almost crouched. Her hands hung loose, fingers opening and closing. Her eyes were no longer performing for the room. They were locked on his center. Mallory lifted the whistle with visible reluctance. Before he could blow it, Diana spoke softly. One move, she said. You understand? Not two, not three. One. Bruce said, You have said that. Diana's face twitched. And when I get it, she whispered, I won't let go because people are watching. I won't let go because your student begs. I won't let go because Frank tells me to. Bruce looked at her hands. Diana leaned forward. Now I'm going to hurt you. The whistle blew. Diana charged, not with anger this time, with everything. Her first step shook the mat. Her shoulder drove forward. Her right hand reached for Bruce's wrist. Her left arm rose to block his escape. At the same time, one of her supporters kicked the sagging rope inward with his heel, shrinking the space behind Bruce by another few inches. Peter saw it. Bruce! Bruce already knew. The trap had become perfect, Diana in front. Rope behind, bodies around him, rules against him, and one grip away from public defeat. Diana's fingers closed around his forearm, this time not cloth, skin. The crowd exploded. Diana's eyes flashed with triumph. She had him. Diana's fingers locked around Bruce's forearm. Not fabric, not air, bone. The sound that came from the room was not applause at first. It was a sharp collective breath, the sound of hundreds of people realizing that the whole challenge had finally reached the place Diana had promised from the beginning. Her hand was on him, her grip was real, and Bruce Lee had nowhere left to step. Diana's eyes widened with triumph for half a second. Then, the triumph hardened into focus. She did not waste the moment. Her left hand shot toward his elbow, while her right foot stomped outside his lead foot, blocking the angle where he had escaped before. This time, she had learned. This time, she shut the door. Mallory shouted from the side, Now! Lock it! Diana drove her shoulder into Bruce's chest. The impact pushed him backward. The rope brushed his torn sleeve. One more inch, and his back would touch it. One more inch, and Mallory could call him trapped. One more inch, and every man in that room who had mocked him would have the headline they wanted. Bruce Lee caught by female wrestling champion. Kung Fu exposed. One move was all she needed. Diana felt his arm bend. Her smile came back. There, she whispered through her teeth. Feel that? Bruce did not answer. That made her squeeze harder. Her fingers dug into his forearm. The muscles in her neck stood out like cables. She pulled his wrist across his own centerline, forcing his shoulder to turn. It was a brutal little angle, not dramatic, not flashy, just the kind of position that made the body start giving up choices one by one. Peter saw it and went cold. He had seen joint locks before. He had seen Bruce escape holds that looked impossible, but this was different. Diana had weight, Timing and anger, and now she also had contact. Her hip was placed across Bruce's foot, her head was tucked tight, her second hand was nearly at the elbow. If those hands connected fully, there would be no clean escape without injury. The gray sweatshirt wrestler leaned toward Peter and grinned. Still breathing? Peter did not look at him. He was watching Bruce's hand. Bruce's free hand had not risen yet. It hung loose near his side. Too loose, almost careless. Diana noticed it too and mistook it for weakness. She stepped deeper. Her knee pressed against the outside of Bruce's thigh. Her shoulder drove upward under his chest. Her grip dragged his forearm down and across, folding him toward the exact place where she wanted his balance to break. The audience rose. Reporters lifted cameras. Mallory's whistle hung from his mouth, forgotten. Diana's voice dropped low enough that only Bruce could hear. "You're done." Bruce's heel slid. The rope touched his back. The gym exploded. "He's out!" "No, he's trapped." "Call it." Mallory stepped closer, eyes fixed on Bruce's feet. Diana felt the room coming back to her and fed on it. Her anger changed shape again. Now it became pleasure. She leaned in close, her mouth near Bruce's ear. "Say it." Bruce's eyes moved to her shoulder, not her grip, not the rope, her shoulder. Diana's brow tightened. She hated that look, that reading, that calm examination, as if even now, with his arm trapped in the crowd shouting, he was studying a hinge instead of fighting for survival. "Say wrestling beats kung fu," she hissed. "Say it before I put you down." Bruce's free hand lifted 2 inches. Diana reacted instantly, clamping harder at the wrist. "No tricks." The hand stopped. The crowd leaned in. For a terrible second, Bruce's posture folded further, his captured arm bent. Diana's left hand reached the elbow and began to wrap. The lock was almost complete. Peter took a step forward without realizing it. The gray sweatshirt wrestler grabbed his chest and held him back. Peter shoved at the hand. "Let go!" The wrestler pulled him close. "Watch your teacher lose." Peter swung his forearm into the man's grip, breaking it just enough to twist free. The wrestler's face darkened. He shoved Peter hard with both hands. Peter stumbled sideways and hit one of the folding chairs. The chair skidded backward with a metallic screech. Bruce heard it. His eyes flicked for the smallest fraction of a second. Diana felt it. A smile split her face. "There," she said. "That's where you are." She drove again. This time she poured everything into the lock. Not technique alone. Pride, rage, the need to crush the silence out of him. Her shoulder slammed under his chest, her hips turned, her hands tried to complete the circle around his arm. Bruce's body yielded, not collapsed, yielded. Diana felt him soften and misunderstood completely. She thought she had broken him. "Good," she whispered. "Now you understand." The crowd became a wall of noise. But inside that noise, something strange happened. Bruce stopped resisting exactly where Diana expected resistance. His captured wrist did not pull away. His elbow did not jerk backward. His shoulder did not fight against the pressure. Instead, everything aligned for one quiet instant, as if the body Diana was trying to control had become empty in the places she needed it to be solid. Diana's grip tightened on nothing useful. Her own strength began sliding past its target. She did not notice yet. She was too close to victory. Her left hand finally reached what she thought was the finishing angle. She stepped across Bruce's foot to cut off the last escape. Her hip turned, her shoulder dipped. Mallory shouted, "Finish it!" Diana roared and committed. Completely. That was the mistake. Bruce's free hand rose, not to strike, not to grab. It touched the inside of Diana's forearm at the exact moment her weight crossed too far forward. 2 fingers. The same small contact as before. But this time, the whole room saw what followed. Diana's locked arm suddenly had nowhere to pull. Her own shoulder blocked her next movement. Her lead foot was too deep. Her hips were turned too far. The grip she believed was a cage became a handle attached to her own imbalance. Her eyes changed. Triumph vanished. Confusion arrived. Then fear. Not fear of pain. Fear of being wrong in front of everyone. Bruce stepped, only a few inches, behind her lead foot. Diana tried to adjust, but her body had already committed to the old direction. She tried to pull him down, and the pull turned her own spine. She tried to drive forward, and the pressure carried her past the point where her balance could follow. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. For the first time all night, Diana Hayes was falling before she understood why. But Bruce did not finish it yet. He let her catch herself. One hand hit the mat, her knee dropped. She saved the fall with raw strength and sprang halfway back up, furious, humiliated, breathing hard. The crowd screamed. Some cheered because they thought she had survived. Others fell silent because they understood Bruce had just chosen not to end it. Diana understood enough to hate him for it. She lunged from the half-rise, abandoning the lock, abandoning the rules, driving her forearm toward Bruce's throat. It was ugly. Desperate, a champion's movement stripped of patience. Bruce leaned back just enough that her forearm cut through the air in front of his neck. His right hand touched her wrist. His left hand touched her shoulder. Diana's momentum carried into both points of contact. For a blink, she was suspended between attack and disaster. Bruce could have dropped her. He did not. He redirected her past him. Diana stumbled 2 steps and crashed shoulder first into the rope. The rope snapped against her chest and threw her back toward the mat. She caught herself again, but now her hair was loose, her face red, and her breathing ragged. The room had stopped laughing completely. Diana turned. Her eyes were wet with rage, though no tears fell. She pointed at Bruce. "You think that means something?" Bruce's torn sleeve hung from his arm. His chest rose once, slowly. He said, "It means you are late." Diana's face twisted. She charged again. This time, no setup. No fake, no patience. She came straight for the one move, the move she had built her entire insult around. Right hand for the wrist, left hand for the elbow, foot outside his foot, shoulder under the chest. A perfect repetition, a perfect trap. And Bruce had already seen all of it. Her right hand closed around his wrist again. The crowd inhaled. Diana's left hand shot for the elbow. Bruce's free hand lifted only a few inches. Diana leaned close, teeth clenched, victory and fury mixing in her eyes. "Say it!" she demanded. Bruce looked directly at her. Too late. Diana did not understand. Not yet. Her lock was almost complete. Her grip was tight. Her body was committed. The whole room was watching. She had everything she wanted, except the one thing she needed. Control. Diana's left hand closed around Bruce's elbow. For half a second, the entire gym believed the story had ended. Her right hand had the wrist. Her left hand had the joint. Her shoulder was wedged beneath his chest. Her foot had stepped outside his foot, blocking the same escape he had used before. The rope waited behind him. The crowd waited in front of him. Mallory's whistle trembled between his lips. Diana Hayes had the one move, the move that had broken larger men. The move she had promised would make Bruce Lee say the words. Her face twisted with effort and triumph. Now, she turned her hips. Bruce moved before the lock became a lock, not after. Before. His captured wrist rotated inward through the smallest opening between Diana's thumb and forefinger. It was not a pull. A pull would have fed her strength. It was a spiral, sharp and quiet, like a key turning inside a lock Diana did not know she had built. Her grip tightened automatically. That made it worse. The harder she squeezed, the more her own wrist followed the rotation. Bruce's elbow dropped half an inch. Diana's shoulder, already driving forward, suddenly had nothing solid to crush. Her force slipped past him. Her hips kept turning, but his center was no longer in the place she had aimed her body at. Her eyes widened. Too late. Bruce stepped behind her lid foot, not a sweeping kick, not a trip meant to injure, just a placement. His foot touched the mat exactly where Diana needed space to recover. She tried to shift back. There was no back. She tried to drive forward. There was no forward. Her own body had sealed both doors. The crowd saw the change before Diana felt the fall. Her shoulder dipped, her spine twisted, her right knee bent inward. Her hands still held Bruce, but now they held him the way a drowning person holds a rope tied to a sinking weight. Bruce's free hand touched her upper arm, lightly. Then he turned. Diana hit the mat on her side with a sound that shut every mouth in the room. Not a crash. A final answer. Her grip broke on impact. One hand slapped the canvas, the other clutched air. The woman who had entered the circle promising one move lay on the mat, breathing hard, staring at the ceiling lights as if they had betrayed her too. Bruce stepped away immediately. That was worse than standing over her. If he had posed, she could have hated him. If he had shouted, she could have called him arrogant. If he had hurt her, she could have turned pain into an excuse. But he simply gave her space, like the fight was already over, like he had known the ending before she began. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Then a camera clicked. The sound snapped Diana back into herself. Her face changed. Shock became shame. Shame became fury. She rolled to one knee and shoved herself up so fast Mallory reached for her shoulder. "Diana, stop!" She slapped his hand away. "I'm not finished." Mallory's voice lowered. "You went down." She turned on him with wild eyes. "I slipped." Nobody believed it. Not Mallory, not the reporters, not the wrestlers at the rope, not even the gray sweatshirt man who had spent the entire night laughing and now stared at Bruce as if size had stopped making sense. Diana pointed at Bruce with a shaking finger. "You moved before contact." Bruce looked at her calmly. "You already had contact. You twisted my wrist. You gave it to me." Her jaw clenched so hard the muscles jumped. A few people murmured. That sound reached her like another slap. She charged. No whistle, no agreement, no rule. Just pride trying to outrun humiliation. Peter shouted, "Bruce!" Diana came high this time, not for the wrist, but for Bruce himself. Both hands reached for his jacket. Her right palm aimed at his chest. Her left hand came up toward his collar. It was not a wrestling entry anymore. It was a woman trying to drag the moment back by force. Bruce stood still until she was close enough that the room believed he had waited too long. Then his right hand lifted. Her wrist stopped inches from his chest. Stopped, not blocked with a bang, not slapped aside. Stopped as if it had reached a wall she could not see. Bruce's fingers curved around the outside of her wrist. His thumb settled lightly near the joint. His other hand touched her elbow. Diana froze. She tried to push. Nothing. She tried to pull. Nothing. Her arm was caught between 2 points of control so small they looked almost insulting. She was stronger than him. Everyone knew it. She knew it most of all. And still, her arm would not move. Bruce stepped slightly to his left. Diana's knees bent. She fought it. Her face flushed darker. Her teeth showed. Her shoulders strained. The veins in her neck rose again. But the more she forced the arm, the more her balance collapsed into the place Bruce had already prepared. He did not throw her. He placed her. One smooth turn, one breath. Diana dropped to both knees on the mat, not slammed, set down. The silence afterward was heavier than the fall. Diana stared at the floor. Her hands were on the mat now. Her hair hung loose around her face. Sweat dripped from her chin onto the canvas. Her chest rose and fell like she had run miles, not crossed 6 feet. Bruce released her and stepped back again. Peter looked around the gym. Nobody laughed. The wrestlers who had blocked him earlier would not meet his eyes. Mallory removed the whistle from his mouth and let it hang against his chest. The reporters had stopped writing. For once, everyone understood that words would make the moment smaller. Diana slowly lifted her head. Her eyes found Bruce. There was still anger in them, but something else had entered too. Something harder for her to carry. Recognition. "You could have broken it," she said. Her voice was rough. Bruce did not answer immediately. He looked at her wrist, then her shoulder, then her face. "Yes." The word landed softly. Diana swallowed. "You could have broken it the first time." "Yes." She looked away. That truth hurt more than the mat. All night she had been trying to prove Bruce Lee was protected by tricks, reputation, distance, and politeness, but now she had the answer she never wanted. He had not avoided hurting her because he could not. He had avoided it because he did not need to. Diana pushed herself to her feet. Her legs were steady, but her pride was not. She looked at the crowd, then at Mallory, then at Peter. The room that had belonged to her an hour earlier now felt unfamiliar. Mallory stepped close and spoke quietly. "Say it." Diana's eyes cut toward him. He did not back down this time. "You made the condition." For a moment, it looked like she might refuse. Then she looked at Bruce again. He was not smiling. That made it possible. If he had enjoyed her humiliation, she would have hated him forever. But there was no victory on his face, no cruelty, no appetite for applause, only calm. Diana breathed in through her nose. Then she said, barely loud enough for the front row, "I was wrong," Mallory said, louder. Her jaw tightened. She turned toward the room. "I was wrong." No one clapped. No one dared. Diana forced herself to continue. "One move is not enough." The words seemed to scrape their way out of her. Bruce picked up the torn strip of his sleeve from the mat. He held it for a second, then folded it once and placed it on a nearby chair. Diana watched the small action, confused. Bruce said, "Strength is useful." He looked at her hands. "But when your mind moves first, your body arrives late." Diana said nothing. Bruce stepped off the mat. The crowd parted for him now, but differently than they had parted for Diana. Not from fear. Not from intimidation. From the uncomfortable respect people give when they have seen something they cannot explain away. Peter followed, still rubbing his wrist. At the edge of the room, the gray sweatshirt wrestler moved aside without speaking. Bruce stopped beside him. The man stiffened. Bruce looked at Peter. "Is your wrist all right?" Peter flexed his fingers. "Yes." Bruce nodded and continued walking. That was all. No revenge, no warning. And somehow that made the wrestler look smaller than any strike could have. Diana remained on the mat long after Bruce reached the door. The room slowly came back to life. Chairs scraped, men whispered. A reporter finally began scribbling again, though his hand moved like he was afraid the facts would change if he wrote too fast. Mallory walked away without speaking to her. One by one, people left. The gym emptied. Only the smell of sweat, liniment, and old canvas remained. Near the wall, Diana saw the poster taped beside the entrance. "One move is all I need." Her own words, big black letters. Beneath them, her photograph, arms crossed, chin raised, eyes full of certainty. She stared at it for a long time. Then she walked over, reached up, and pulled it down. The tape tore loudly in the quiet room. Peter was gathering his bag near the door when he heard her voice behind him. "Your teacher," she said. Peter turned. Diana held the poster folded once in her hand. Her face was tired now, not broken, not soft, just honest in a way it had not been all night. "Where does he train?" Peter looked at her carefully. "Why?" Diana glanced down at her wrist, flexed it once, then looked back at him. "Because I don't want to be late again." Peter said nothing for a moment. Then he picked up the wooden sticks from the floor, placed them in his bag, and gave her the address. Diana listened without interrupting. For the first time all night, she did not stand like a champion waiting to be admired. She stood like a student. And somewhere outside, in the Los Angeles night, Bruce Lee was already gone. If this story kept you watching until the end, subscribe for more stories where pride steps into the ring with truth and finds out too late which one hits harder.